The arrival. The Galactic Council chamber floated in the void like a jewel among stars. Inside its crystalline walls, Ambassador Krell raised 4 of his 6 arms in frustration. The reptilian diplomat had been arguing about mineral rights for 2 hours, and the other council members were growing tired. The Vrex Empire has historical claim to the Andor system, Krell hissed, his scales shimmering under the chamber's soft lights. We discovered those worlds first. High Chancellor Mora, a being of pure golden energy contained in a floating sphere, was about to respond when every alarm in the station began screaming at once. Red lights flashed across the massive circular chamber. The holographic star map in the center flickered and died. What is happening? Mora's voice echoed like 1,000 bells ringing together. Tech Officer Ven, a small creature with 8 eyes and blue skin, frantically worked at his console. His hands moved so fast they blurred. Energy signature approaching the neutral zone. It's massive. Unlike anything in our database. Identify it, Admiral Thane commanded. The jellyfish-like being floated higher, his transparent body pulsing with bioluminescent warnings. Now, Ven's 8 eyes widened in shock. It's a human warship. Silence fell across the chamber. 300 species represented in the council, and not one of them spoke. Humans were the quiet ones, the species that kept to themselves in a small region of space near the galactic rim. They attended council meetings, paid their dues, and never caused trouble. They had no military presence beyond their own borders. That's impossible, War Master Beck growled. The massive warrior stood 3 meters tall, covered in thick armor-like skin. Humans don't have warships capable of reaching council space. I'm reading the signature correctly, Ven insisted, his voice shaking. It's human design. But the size, Chancellor, it's 10 times larger than any vessel in our records. Ambassador David Rivers shot to his feet. The human diplomat was a thin man with gray hair and gentle eyes. Right now, those eyes were filled with confusion. I have received no communication from Earth about any military vessel. This must be a mistake. Mistake or not, it's entering our space, Admiral Thane said, his body flashing angry red. I'm authorizing defensive positions. All Council fleet ships are to arm weapons. Wait, Mora commanded. We don't know their intentions. Ven, can you get more information? The tech officer's fingers danced across his screens. The ship is slowing. Energy readings are impossible. The reactor output exceeds our theoretical maximums. Whatever drives that ship, it's beyond our current understanding. Weapons? Beck asked, always focused on military matters. Unknown. But the hull is emitting a field I've never seen before. It's bending space around itself. On the main view screen, the ship finally appeared. The council members gasped, growled, chirped, and made sounds of alarm in a dozen languages. The vessel was enormous, shaped like a spearhead with smooth black metal that seemed to drink in the light. Blue energy pulsed along its surface in rhythmic waves. Hail them, Mora ordered. Ven worked his console. Channel open. The view screen changed. A human woman appeared, standing on what looked like a command bridge. She wore a dark blue uniform with simple markings. Her brown hair was pulled back and her green eyes were calm and focused. I am Commander Lisa Gray of the Earth vessel Defiance, she said, her voice clear and steady. I request permission to address the Galactic Council on a matter of extreme importance. You have violated neutral space, Admiral Thane accused, his body now pure crimson with anger. You have broken treaties that have stood for 3 centuries. Explain yourself, Gray didn't flinch. I apologize for the breach of protocol, but what I have to share couldn't wait for proper channels. Every second counts. Ambassador Rivers stepped forward. Commander Gray, I don't understand. Earth Command has sent me no information about your mission. I don't even have records of a ship called Defiance. For the first time, Gray's expression softened slightly. I know, Ambassador. And I'm sorry. You'll understand why shortly. This is outrageous, Krell hissed, all 6 arms gesturing wildly. The humans send an unknown warship to our doorstep and expect us to welcome them? I demand we fire upon this vessel immediately. Seconded, another voice called out from the chamber floor. Denied, Mora said firmly. We are not starting a war based on fear. Commander Gray, you will dock with this station. You will come to this chamber. And you will explain everything. Do you accept these terms? Gray nodded once. I accept. Thank you, Chancellor. You won't regret this decision. The view screen went dark. Outside, the Defiance began moving toward the docking bay. Its massive form cast shadows across the station. Council members watched in silence as the ship approached. perfectly controlled despite its enormous size. "Look at how it moves," War Master Beck whispered, a hint of respect in his rough voice. "No thrust visible. No conventional propulsion. What technology are the humans hiding?" Ambassador Rivers felt cold sweat on his forehead. His own people had built this ship and he knew nothing about it. What else was Earth hiding and why? Admiral Thane's body had faded to a worried purple. "I don't like this. We should have fired. We should have destroyed that ship while we had the chance." "Perhaps," Mora said quietly, the golden energy swirling thoughtfully. "Or perhaps Commander Gray is about to tell us something we desperately need to hear. Alert all council members. Emergency session begins in 1 hour. Everyone must attend." As the message went out across the station, the Defiance completed its docking procedure. Deep in the station's bay, a single human woman prepared to step off her ship and change the galaxy forever. The message, the council chamber, had never been so full. Every species, every ambassador, every military officer, they all crowded in to see the human who had dared to bring a warship to their peaceful meeting ground. Commander Gray walked through the entrance alone. No guards, no weapons visible on her belt. She was small compared to most species in the room. War Master Beck could crush her with one hand. Admiral Thane could poison her with a single touch. Yet she walked with her head high, her steps confident. "Commander Lisa Gray," High Chancellor Mora announced, her voice filling the chamber. "You stand before the Galactic Council. You have violated our treaties. You have brought an unauthorized military vessel into neutral space. Explain yourself." Gray stopped in the center of the chamber, surrounded by thousands of eyes, sensors, and hostile stares. She took a breath and began. "Honorable council members, I apologize for the manner of my arrival, but I come with information that couldn't wait for proper diplomatic channels. For the past 70 years, Earth has been monitoring deep space beyond the galactic rim. We've been watching areas that the council's sensors don't reach." "Impossible," Tech Officer Venn squeaked. "Our sensor network covers all approaches." "Your network covers known space," Gray corrected gently. "But there are gaps, small blind spots between your observation points. We noticed them 50 years ago and started watching those areas ourselves." Ambassador Krell slithered forward, his scales rattling with anger. "You admit to spying on council space?" "We admit to being careful," Gray replied. "And that caution has revealed something terrible. 20 years ago, we detected unusual movement in dark space. Energy signatures that didn't match any known species. We investigated." She pulled a small device from her pocket. A hologram appeared above it, showing star maps and data streams. "This is what we found. An invasion force, ships numbering in the millions. A species we've designated as the Krell Swarm. They're extragalactic. They consume entire civilizations, strip worlds of all resources, and move on." The chamber erupted in noise. Species shouted in dozens of languages. Ambassador Rivers looked like he might faint. "Lies," Krell shouted. "Human manipulation. They invented this threat to gain power in the council." "I wish that were true," Gray said quietly. The chamber slowly fell silent again. "But the evidence is real. Ven, I'm sending you our full data package now. Decades of observations, long-range scans, intercepted communications, mathematical probability models. Review it all." Ven's console lit up as the data arrived. His 8 eyes scanned the information rapidly. His blue skin turned pale gray. "Chancellor, this data appears authentic. The energy signatures are real. The trajectory calculations are accurate. If this is real, it is real," Gray interrupted. "And the swarm will reach the outer council systems in 6 months. Maybe 7 if we're lucky." War Master Beck stepped forward, his heavy footsteps shaking the floor. "Why should we believe you? Humans are weak. You have no military tradition. Why would you know about threats we cannot detect?" Gray met his eyes without fear. "Because we learned to be paranoid. Earth's history taught us that survival means always watching the darkness. We assumed the galaxy had threats you couldn't see, so we looked for them. And built that ship to fight them?" Admiral Thane asked, his body a suspicious orange color. "Yes. The Defiance took 50 years to build. Earth's best scientists and engineers worked in secret. We developed new engines based on quantum tunneling, weapons that unmake matter at the atomic level, shields that fold space itself." Ambassador Rivers finally found his voice. "Commander, I'm the official representative of Earth. How is it possible that my government knows nothing about this ship or this project?" Gray turned to face him, and for the first time she looked sad. Ambassador, I'm sorry, but your government didn't build the Defiance, we did. A coalition of military scientists, private corporations, and defense contractors. People who saw the threat coming and knew official channels would be too slow. We've been preparing for war while the politicians debated trade agreements. That's treason, Rivers whispered. That's survival, Gray corrected. And when the swarm arrives, you'll be glad we committed treason. High Chancellor Mora's energy swirled in complex patterns, a sign of deep thought. You built one ship. One impressive ship, I grant you. But one ship cannot stop an invasion force of millions. You're right, Gray admitted. We've built 12 ships like the Defiance. But even that won't be enough. We need the Council's resources. Your fleets. Your weapons. Your knowledge. United, we have a chance. Divided, we all die. Why would humans sacrifice themselves for us? Another ambassador called out. What do you gain? Gray's expression hardened. We gain survival. The swarm doesn't negotiate. They don't take prisoners. When they're done with your worlds, they'll come for ours. We can't run. We can't hide. So we fight. And we need you to fight with us. The chamber exploded into arguments. Some species called for Gray's arrest. Others demanded to see more evidence. War Master Beck wanted to board the Defiance and examine it. Admiral Thane suggested destroying the human ship as a warning to others who might break treaties. Through it all, Gray stood silent and calm, waiting for the storm to pass. Finally, High Chancellor Mora raised her energy form high and the chamber fell quiet. We will vote. Should the Council accept Commander Gray's warning and begin preparation for... Every alarm in the station screamed again. Tech Officer Ven's console exploded with data. His voice cracked with terror. Contact! Outer system. It's one of them. A Krell swarm scout ship. It just entered our space. On the main view screen, something impossible appeared. A ship that looked like it was made of shadows and blades. It moved wrong, tearing through space like cloth being ripped. Commander Gray's calm expression never changed. She simply looked at High Chancellor Mora and said quietly, You wanted proof. There it is. The galaxy's comfortable peace had just ended. The decision, the Krell scout ship moved through space like a predator through water. Smooth, fast, and utterly alien. On the Council Station's view screens, every member watched in horrified fascination. As the vessel approached the outer defense perimeter, all ships, engage, Admiral Thane commanded, his transparent body flashing through every color of alarm. Fire at will. 2 Council patrol ships broke formation and accelerated toward the intruder. They were modern vessels, equipped with the latest plasma cannons and quantum torpedoes. Their crews were trained and experienced. They should have been enough to handle a single scout ship. They weren't. The Krell ship didn't dodge or maneuver. It simply phased slightly out of normal space as the plasma fire passed through where it had been. Then it returned to normal space and unleashed its own weapons, black beams of energy that didn't just damage the patrol ships, they erased them. One moment, 2 Council vessels existed. The next moment, there was only empty space, no debris, no escape pods, nothing. War Master Beck made a sound deep in his chest, something between a growl and a prayer in his native language. What kind of weapon does that? Entropy acceleration, Commander Gray said quietly from her position in the chamber. All eyes turn to her. They speed up time around their target until it ages billions of years in seconds. The ships didn't explode. They aged until they turned to dust. That's theoretically impossible, Tech Officer Ven whispered, all 8 eyes locked on his screens. Tell that to the crews who just died, Gray replied without emotion. 4 more patrol ships are moving to engage. They'll die too if you don't let me help. High Chancellor Mora's energy form pulsed with rapid calculations. The Chancellor had lived for 3,000 years and had never seen anything like this scout ship. What can your Defiance do? Permission to engage, Chancellor? The golden energy swirled, and for a moment Mora hesitated. Allowing the human warship to act would mean admitting the Council's own forces were inadequate. It would shift the balance of power in the galaxy. But the alternative was watching more Council members die. Permission granted. Gray pulled out a communication device. Gray to Defiance. Engage the hostile. Full combat authorization. On the view screen, the massive human warship moved. It had been hanging in space near the docking bay, seemingly dormant. Now it accelerated with impossible speed, covering the distance to the Krell scout in seconds. There was no visible thrust, no engines firing. The ship simply moved. 4 more Council patrol ships were preparing to fire when the Defiance passed them. The human vessel positioned itself between the Council ships and the Krell scout. "What weapons does it have?" Ambassador Rivers asked, his voice barely audible. "Watch," Gray said simply. The Defiance fired, but its weapons weren't like anything the Council had seen. No plasma, no projectiles, no energy beams. Instead, space itself seemed to fold around the Krell scout. Reality bent, twisted, and the hostile ship was crushed from all directions at once. When space returned to normal, the scout ship was gone. Not destroyed, not aged away. Simply gone, as if it had been cut out of the universe. The entire Council chamber was silent. "Combat time. 41 seconds, Gray announced. "The scout ship is neutralized." The Defiance returned to its position near the station. On the bridge view screen, Gray could see the ship's commander giving her a subtle nod. War Master Beck was the first to speak. "How did you do that?" Gray turned to address the full Council. "Our scientists discovered how to weaponize dimensional folding. We compress the target into a pocket dimension and seal it off from our reality. The ship still exists somewhere, but not here. Not anymore." "The energy requirements must be enormous," Venn said, his scientific curiosity overcoming his fear. "They are. Each shot drains a significant portion of our reactor output. The Defiance can fire approximately 50 times before needing to recharge for several hours." "And you have 12 of these ships?" Admiral Thane asked, his body now a thoughtful blue color. "Correct. But that scout was alone. The main Krell swarm fleet has thousands of ships like it. Millions of smaller attack craft. And capital ships we estimate to be 10 times larger than that scout." Gray pulled up her holographic display again, showing new data. "That scout was transmitting the entire time it was in our space. It was scanning our defenses, learning our technology, analyzing our tactics. In approximately 3 hours, that data will reach the main swarm fleet. They'll adjust their approach based on what they learned." "Then we've already lost," Ambassador Krell said quietly, his earlier anger replaced by fear. "Not yet," Gray countered. "We have 6 months. Maybe 7. We can use that time to prepare, to build, to unite." High Chancellor Mora descended from her elevated position, her energy form dimming to a soft glow. "Commander Gray, you've given us much to consider. But I must ask, if your coalition could build 12 ships in secret, why do you need us?" Gray's expression softened slightly. "Because 12 ships aren't enough. We need hundreds, thousands, and we need them in 6 months. Earth doesn't have the industrial capacity. We don't have the raw materials. We don't have the variety of scientific knowledge spread across your species. Alone, we'll fight and we'll die. Together, we have a chance. What kind of chance?" War Master Beck asked. "Honestly, I calculate our odds of survival at 37%. But that's better than 0. The chamber erupted again, but this time the tone was different. Fear was still present, but now it was mixed with determination. Species that had been rivals for centuries were looking at each other with new understanding. The ancient threats that had seemed so important an hour ago, trade disputes, territorial claims, resource rights, suddenly seemed trivial. One by one, military commanders stood to pledge their fleets. War Master Beck was first. "The warrior clans will fight. We live for battle. Better to die facing real enemies than to grow soft in peacetime." Admiral Thane followed, his body a determined green. "The Tal Confederacy Navy will join the defense. All 2,000 ships," more voices joined. Species Gray had never heard of promised their forces. Scientists offered their knowledge. Engineers volunteered their expertise. Ambassador Krell was the last to stand. The reptilian diplomat looked older somehow, his scales less bright. "The Vrex Empire will contribute 3,000 ships in our industrial stations. But I want it noted that this alliance is temporary. When the swarm is defeated, if it's defeated, we will remember that humans broke treaties and acted without Council approval." "Noted," Gray said calmly. "And fair enough." High Chancellor Mora rose high again, her energy form bright and commanding. "Then it's decided. The Galactic Council authorizes full military alliance. All resources will be pooled. Joint command structure will be established. Commander Gray, you will serve as strategic commander, reporting to a mixed council of military leaders." Ambassador Rivers stepped forward, still looking shaken. "Chancellor, I must insist that Earth's official government be consulted before—" "No time," Mora interrupted gently. "Bureaucracy moves slowly. War moves fast. Commander Gray and her coalition will have full authority to act on humanity's behalf. Ambassador, I suggest you contact your government and explain the situation. They can file complaints later if they survive. Rivers looked like he might argue, then simply nodded and sat down. Gray brought up tactical displays showing the entire galaxy. We need to begin immediately. First priority, establish a defensive perimeter at the galactic rim. Second, accelerate ship production across all member species. Third, share all military technology without restriction. The swarm won't care about patents or secrets, and neither can we. What about evacuation? Someone asked from the chamber floor. Shouldn't we be preparing to move populations away from the outer systems? Evacuate to where? Gray asked quietly. The swarm will consume the entire galaxy if we let them. There's nowhere to run. We stand here or we don't stand at all. War Master Beck laughed, a deep rumbling sound. I like this human. She thinks like a warrior. Gray smiled slightly. I'm a scientist who learned to fight, but I appreciate the compliment. High Chancellor Mora began assigning tasks to various council members. Tech Officer Venn would coordinate sensor networks. Admiral Thane would organize the fleet formations. War Master Beck would oversee weapons development. The chamber transformed from a place of debate into a war room, with species that had barely tolerated each other now working side by side. As the initial planning session began to wind down, Ambassador Rivers approached Gray. Commander, I need to know something. That ship, the Defiance, what would you have done if the Council had refused to help? If they'd fired on you when you arrived? Gray met his eyes steadily. Then we would have fought the swarm alone. And when the Council's worlds were falling, when their fleets were burning, we would have watched from a distance. Sometimes, Ambassador, the only way to make people understand the darkness is to let them see it for themselves. That's cold. That's survival. I didn't come here to make friends. I came here to build an army, and you got one. We'll see. Talk is easy. The real test comes when the swarm arrives and species have to actually die for each other. Outside the station, the Defiance floated in space alongside a growing formation of council ships, vessels from 100 species, each with different designs and capabilities, all pointing toward the galactic rim, toward the darkness where the Krell swarm was approaching. In the command center, Tech Officer Venn established long-range monitoring stations. His screen showed distant space, looking for the first signs of the invasion. High Chancellor Mora approached Commander Gray one final time before the human left the chamber. Commander, one last question. You said the Defiance was a test. What exactly were you testing? Gray looked at the golden energy being, and her expression was completely serious. We needed to know if the galaxy could be saved. If you'd fired on us out of fear, it would have told us that the Council species were too divided, too suspicious to work together. We would have protected Earth and let natural selection handle the rest. That's a terrible calculation. It's a necessary one. Resources are limited. We couldn't save everyone, so we had to know who was worth saving. And your conclusion? Gray looked around the chamber at the dozens of species working together, arguing, planning, and preparing for war. You're worth saving, barely, but enough. She turned to leave, then paused. One more thing, Chancellor. That scout ship we destroyed? It was one of their smallest vessels. Their capital ships are the size of moons, just so you know what we're actually facing. Then Commander Lisa Gray walked out of the council chamber, leaving behind a galaxy that would never be the same. In 6 months, the Krell swarm would arrive. The galaxy had 6 months to learn how to fight back. The age of peace was over. The age of survival had begun. The end.